Welcome everyone. Just give us a moment here. There you go. So happy to have you all back. And it's a very busy time here in this corner. Many famous celebrities arriving, lots of journalists. And here we are with our very own treasures and celebrities, which is Brother Embrace and Brother Spirit from Plum Village. And they have been leading meditations, a beautiful circle of meditation every morning in the action zone of the Blue Zone. And I'll introduce both of you just briefly. So Brother Embrace is a senior teacher in Zen Master Thich Nhat Hanh's Plum Village community. Born in Vietnam in 1969, he escaped with his family aged 10 and became a refugee in America. He has helped bring a spiritual dimension to ecological activism and represented his community at the COP in Paris. Brother Embrace is passionate about bringing mindfulness practice, especially to young people, to support them to find a resilient way of engaging with activism for social and environmental justice. And Brother Spirit is a Zen Buddhist monk ordained by Thich Nhat Hanh, but also a musician and mathematician. And much like Thomas Hübl, he bridges the meeting of science, contemplation, mysticism. He's becoming a leading voice in a new generation of young monastics, helping to bring awareness and healing to the collective trauma of climate grief and anxiety. So thank you so much for joining us. And we were already so happy to join you this morning for the meditation, both Anna and me. So maybe just start by sharing in a few words what it's like to bring this kind of practice into the space of COP26. What has it felt like for you?
Yes, we've been invited to come here to by the people working in negotiation and their team, to support their team as well as support the general environment. And our focus is to take care of the activists and the people meetings and try to negotiate. You see, a lot of people are really stressed and they don't have enough time. So when you have that kind of energy, you come into a room and you meet, you don't have a lot of space in your mind to listen deeply and to really hear the other people. So our meditation, 8 o'clock in the morning, we help people to slow down and as well as come back to their body. They're holding a lot of anxiety, a lot of fear, a lot of emotion. And as well as they're holding a lot of views, a lot of, ready to share their viewpoints, but it's very tense. And it's hard to, communicate with other people when that kind of force. So in a way, it's a very practical thing that we teach them to slow down in the morning, follow our breath, as well as to recognize how wonderful it is to be alive. What are we fighting for if we don't even know how to enjoy this life that we're given, this miracle that we're breathing? The work is important. We don't deny that. Everything is important. But like you want to be, sustainable as well. So I think we teach people to, like, each morning, they after the meditation, you can see their face. Yeah, it's like, oh, I need this. And we know every one of them tell us, I've just been running here to come to this meditation, and we laugh and we tell them, well, we have to, and they see the humor of it, and we tell them, well, our body's rushing, we come, but our mind is not rushing. We're here, we recognize each other. So besides offering that each morning, we are walking around, when we have a break between our sessions, we go slowly, we're present. And so we bring a kind of energy that we've been joking with each other. We bring the off ramp. So it's like, people are running. It's like the off ramp, when you exit off the highway. Yeah. So we meet people in the road and we recognize them, we touch them in human basis. So that's what we're also doing. So it's a kind of like little bit guerrilla meditation. So we walk really slow and we feel this energy flowing by us, which is quite surreal actually. And as well as we're participating in these different sessions, offering our energy as well as our point of view. There's a lot of things missing in the discussion here, not just missing from the southern nations and the indigenous cultures, the different cultures. So we're trying to solve this with one particular ideology only, a way of fixing things, accounting things. But there are other parts of the world that view this very differently, which is a cultural change, a psychological change. So I think this is not part of this rational, this accounting approach. It's great, but like the people who are like trying to solve it, they're not even connected to their bodies. It's all cerebral. And if that doesn't change, even if we get to 1.5 agreement, still we're going to cause a lot of problems. So for us, we also bring the perspective that, the more natural perspective, to not see nature as some material thing, but we are nature. And so once we see that, we move out of love to protect it, not because for our own survival, but it's like out of love.
Economic resourcing.
Yes. So this is we every chance we get, but that's what we see our presence, sharing our perspective as well as a very practical tool, method practice, so that people can take care of themselves, so that they're sustainable as activists, as a negotiator, because they have love. Everybody has loved one at home. Everyone has children at home, and sometimes we in this discussion we forget that, and it becomes very very harsh.
Yeah. Thank you so much. And maybe I'll just ask you to continue from that, but speaking more to how have you seen the collective trauma of climate grief express itself in the people you are with, you spend time with? What has been your experience?
Yeah, so thank you for that. Thank you for that question. Well, in the first place I see it is in myself, right? I mean, that's really the only place I can understand it directly, is in the pain and the grief that I feel. Because, it's, I think we are accustomed to thinking that our feelings are our own, but I'm not sure about that. I think our feelings don't really stay inside our skin. Our feelings spread and we resonate with each other and with the earth. So part of our pain is the pain of the earth. Part of our pain is the pain of the collective consciousness. There's nothing really individual and nothing really collective. Collective is made of individual. Individual, whatever I'm feeling, is made of collective. So that's kind of that's the place where I can get in touch with what is going on in this present moment. It's in my own pain and my own love, my own joy. So then I have to try to figure out, okay, well, what do I do with this pain, and how am I reacting to it habitually? And of course, well, we know quite a lot about how the nervous system handles pain. And there's definitely, when the problem is overwhelming, and these problems certainly are overwhelming, it's natural that we can't run from it, we can't fight it. So there's a tendency to freeze, to go into paralysis. So then the question is, or hyperactivity, we try to find whatever we can to, different ways. So there's a lot of numbing as well. There's a lot of numbing that goes on, and we see that. I think we observe a kind of, in these spaces, maybe a feeling that it would be unprofessional to be emotionally vulnerable, to break down in the plenary and cry. That would be maybe seen to be unacceptable or difficult. Some people can do it, and I'm always very struck by that, the courage to be vulnerable in those spaces. And I think it's actually very important. But in general, there's a tendency to try to shut down those emotions because they're inconvenient and kind of gets in the way, and we just have to get on with the business, and we have to solve it at this level, like my brother was saying, the kind of cerebral approach. And for us, I think between that individual and collective, we also see, so as individuals, we tend to cut off our head from our body, to ignore or cover up or deny or, suppress the feeling. But also collectively, we've been in the blue zone for this whole week, and it's kind of like the head and the body. I think the UK government, and forgive me if this is a little controversial, but for me, what I perceive is that the government is afraid of the body, of the creative, of the joyous, of the emotional, the power of the people. When we go out there in the streets, there's the drumming and the music and the little babies on people's shoulders, and the love is so powerful. But that's being held behind the fences, made invisible as much as possible from and I think we miss something there. That's really unfortunate, to create that separation. And it wasn't always there in former COPs. There's always some degree of separation, but this is extreme. And I think that's really a mistake.
It's very far away.
Yeah.
Yeah, and even the amount of NGOs with different points of view allowed into the blue zone is much less than normal.
And for me, that's really an error and a sign of fear and mistrust. So then, well, on the other side of that, we have kind of the good news, which is that actually in the last few decades, we've learned a lot about how to handle this kind of trauma. Of course, there's also ancient wisdom that knows very well how to handle this kind of trauma. We like to say, we have the spiritual technology to deal with these kinds of issues. We know exactly what to do. So I tell you a story from the other day. We were invited into a meeting, a closed door meeting. So it's not a panel, there's no cameras, there's no live stream. And it was a bit strange that, two monks come into this space, that all these very high level people with their agendas. And so the facilitator starts off by saying, okay, so we've got these two Zen monks here, and they're going to help us to be present, and they're going to ground us, and do some breathing. And that's all we were invited to do. So we had about 3 minutes at the beginning of this thing. Everyone's under incredible time pressure, to say their piece. And you have these two kind of the representatives of all these other organizations to the UN invite all of these other people, very high level heads of all their organizations, to critique their policy. So say, okay, thank you all for coming, and now we invite you to critique everything that we've been doing, which is all well and good and maybe necessary. But as the meeting goes on, what we see is that these two people who have invited this critique are getting just crushed by the weight of this, all with good intention. These people are coming with their brilliance, their love, their commitment, their integrity. But what they're doing is they're just piling rocks on the two people that they depend on to represent their constituencies to these other organizations.
Yeah.
So it's like a lack of emotional and spiritual intelligence, which is quite stark from our point of view, just how to run a meeting, So anyway, we get to the end of this thing, and it's all negative from start to finish.
Yeah.
And then at the end, you just
Inviting
feel like
criticism tends to do that.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And then right at the end, one of them tries to wrap up and, is thanking everybody for their intelligent and important critique. And thank you very much. And we're going to try and take it into account, but there's so many contradictions and we can't satisfy everyone. I'm so sorry. And his voice is going up and up, and he's talking faster and faster. He doesn't know how to wrap it up, how to draw it to a close. So we took a risk, we just actually kind of interrupted him, and we had no invitation to do that at the end, but we said, may we ask permission to do something crazy, because we're all holding so much. We come with so much love, but we're holding so much pain. And actually there are some very simple things that we know how to do that can help very quickly. And science, there's neuroscience that shows if you hold somebody's hand, the whole nervous system can be soothed, and what was in one moment unbearable, it's still painful, but it's bearable. So that's technology. That's amazing, especially if it's a loved one. If your loved one, if you're having a difficult moment and the person you love holds your hand, it changes everything. So I said, okay, can we reach out to the left and right? And we all link hands. And it was a strange moment because everyone kind of like,
COVID.
COVID.
Not allowed.
But I said, look, I know COVID, but the first thing we'll do afterwards, we'll all sanitize our hands, but can we just do this? And then it was like, oh, okay. So they reach out, and we hold each other's hands, and then I guided them a little bit. And I said, look, even though we're in this white, sterile room with white walls, white rectangular desk. I mean, a rectangular desk. How is that going to work to arrive at consensus? You can't even see each other.
Yeah.
With white neon lights, with a white ceiling and a white floor, everything straight lines. Even though we're in this space, we're still on Mother Earth. We're still connected to Mother Earth. She's still there in all of her glory, beauty, stability, freshness. We're still connected to our ancestors. We're still connected to all the millions, maybe billions of people that each of you represent with all of their love. So we're, it looks sterile and cut off, but it's not. And let's feel that connection, literally holding each other's hands. Feel and know, because we know intellectually that we're allies and we're friends and we're all on the same side. But you got to feel it.
Yeah.
And the relief in the room was palpable. So then, it ends, and even this high-level meeting, they get kicked out of their room instantly because it's used by someone else. So the time pressure is intense.
Oh.
But before that, many of them came up with tears in their eyes. And one lady said to us, thank you for helping us to hold hands, because I haven't held the hand of a stranger in 2 years. And I needed that so much, and then several of them came up, and you could see so Taitap Jung was like, can I give you a hug? And, and then once he hugs them, after a few breaths, you see them melt. And then they start crying, and then they don't want to let go.
Yeah.
So that's what we're doing. Just helping people to let all of that pain flow, because when we can hold it skillfully, when we can hold it without drowning in the pain, and that takes some skill and maybe some community as well. That's why sometimes alone, that's
what we here do a lot of practicing around.
Right.
Yeah.
So this work. Exactly. So when we are together, it's lighter. We can hold it in a different way. It doesn't
we have a bigger space together.
Exactly.
Alone, the space is small. Together, the space becomes big.
Exactly. So then, once we can hold it with that non-fear, with that courage, with that stability, then it starts to move. It starts to transform, and it can become compassion. It doesn't stay stuck. We start to metabolize it. It becomes compassion. It becomes action, and then we can stay in the game. We don't burn out. And that's really what we want to offer. We want to offer people a way to let all of that keep flowing, instead of having the fear and oh no, I can't, it's unprofessional, I can't, I'll be out of control, I'll fall apart. No, there are, we have to learn a few things. There's a few techniques, there's a few ways of creating that space together. It's effective. It actually works. It's not rocket science,
Thank you. Beautiful. Thank you. So let me ask you one more question, because I know that you love the children. And even just now, when we came to sit here, there was a little ladybird. I haven't seen one alive animal in this whole COP26 blue zone. And Brother Embrace sits down and he says, oh, look, there's a ladybird on my finger. And he had a little conversation with the ladybird. Unfortunately, this took place before we opened the room. And it flew off after leaving a message behind. But just from that love and that care, especially for the children and also the youth, I know that you also work with youth especially. And is there something that you would like to bring to us into our awareness of the experience of youth at this time and what they need from us?
Actually, I had an insight during this conference, because you don't see many children here. And so when we were biking home, and from the COP conference and taking a break, and we went out to the street and we met with the Fridays for the climate, Fridays for the future,
Fridays for the future.
for all
yeah.
the students, the children. It was amazing. We gravitated to it like it was like heaven, you know. It was like,
Sunshine.
you know, yeah, there's joy, powerful energy, but it was joy and it was youthful and it was just alive compared to here. I mean, we need to do this, but there's something missing. And I remember seeing all the children, they look very safe. I just looking at their face, because their parents are there, their families are, and all, you know, and standing there, I counted all the children, babies. I was looking for babies. I was trying to find a baby crying because the energy was really powerful. And children, babies don't know how to process that. But because the parent is there and the parent feels safe, so I couldn't find, out of 20 babies that I saw, not one of them was crying or like is needing kind of safety. I even saw a mother holding a baby and walking the baby, learning how to walk towards the energy of people marching. But because the way they look at the mother and the baby, I try to see the, yeah. You see the baby's so happy. You know, the baby's marching, his first march, a baby, before he learns how to walk, he's already participating. So what I realized is like, actually, you know, when we have children in the room, adults soften. You know, they say, honey, there's children in the room. That means let's be at our best behavior. This is the energy that we need to be aware of, that there's children in the room. There's the things that we love that are so vulnerable in the room. So how should we speak to each other? How should we behave with one another? How should we think and radiate the energy of love instead of like separation, of accusation, of blame? Of course, there's that, but how can we do it lovingly so it's received? So I felt I had this insight of like, let's have this meeting with that kind of awareness that there's children in the home. But it's hard because you don't want that, because our tendency as an adult mind is like, okay, it's all great. Let's we got work to do. So that is the adult mind, you see? Like, okay, that's all nice and romantic and very hippie-ish, you know, emotional stuff. Yeah, but we got to get to work. We do the real work here. That's fine. That's all good and dandy. But you see the disconnect with the gentleness and how to behave. And this is the culture that we need to save as well. It's not just the climate change or environmental change, but it is the whole way of looking of the human sphere, the
Change
inner
of
sphere.
heart.
Yeah, there's this atmosphere, there's biosphere, but look at the the human sphere, what we are doing to one another. So this is crucial in the movement to revolutionize how we you know emit and produce and consume. But we also need to see how humans are treating one another. And so this is very important to us. Like climate change, we also need a cultural change, a consciousness, a mind change of how we think, how we behave, how we consume, and so on. I mean, this is a very important aspect, because you can solve these problems, but you have to really come back and look at yourself. How are you at home? How do you behave with your loved ones? Because that is the basis. If you don't feel content, and if you don't feel happy, the work you do seems like it's a great cause, but you'll continue to fill that up with consumption, and you'll continue to demonize other groups and exploit other groups, not just nature, other human beings. So this is for us what we bring to the picture. So the revolution is not just about like balancing our emission and our consumption things, but it's how we look at the world.
Deeper
Revolutionize
revolution. It's a true
our,
revolution.
yes, that's very the inner sphere, I call it. You know, the atmosphere, great, but the inner sphere needs also be cared for. We bring in toxins every day to our bodies and our mind. You know, so the culture of competition, of more is, you know, more. It's like, yeah, we balance these sheets out with emission, but I'm sure with the mentality of more, we're going to cause other problems. And so
Yeah,
for me, this is
beautiful.
a very important element.
Beautiful. So in these networks, we're here also to bring awareness about exactly what you were speaking about, the way that the collective trauma, the pollution of our internal space impedes our ability to respond from the heart, put in one sentence. So, on the one hand, we invite you because we think it would be wonderful to collaborate more closely. And I already said I would love to have a longer conversation with you about the work. But maybe to complete, we could just, because our time is nearly over, just share a blessing or a prayer for COP26, for our work, for the beautiful inner sphere that we are dreaming of, allowing to flourish again in the world. I love the freshness of a flower arriving, the freshness of a flower arriving this morning in meditation.
Thank you. Thank you for that. And I think this is also very much what we want to offer in terms of the potential for having ways to be with this collective trauma in us and when we're with others. So, when we do like a meditation or a blessing contemplation, it's not just kind of like hoping, or just, oh, I hope this does something. It's
Or
actually
imagination.
right. It's in this moment. In this moment, this is how I stand.
Yeah.
This is how I reclaim my sovereignty. This is how I take action. We sometimes think of action as only, we have to go out there and do something. But sitting here is doing something. How to meet that feeling, that's action. Maybe the most important action that we can take. So one thing that I think we tend to, it's very easy to forget in these difficult times when we face these gigantic problems, is joy. Very easy to underestimate actually the power of joy, to underestimate the power of stillness. But for us, and I'm sure for you, you know this, and I'm sure many of your listeners know, the joy is actually part of the way to meet the trauma. That if we try to go straight into it, we'll probably get overwhelmed. But if we create a bigger space, like a container, we know how to generate a feeling of joy, how to generate a feeling of happiness at any moment. That is actually what gives us the capacity to be with dignity, with the pain. So that's what I'd like to invite us to tap into a little bit now, because even though, of course, things are very, very bad, we are, at a critical hour, past the critical hour, maybe, but there's still joy, and we need it. It's the appropriate response. It's not frivolous. It's not trivial. It's actually the appropriate response, and we need to take courage in that. So where do we find that joy in this moment as we sit here together? I invite you just to be aware of your feet on the ground. I invite you to notice how your weight translates into the earth, where your balance is. If you like to make your spine, give yourself the possibility for your spine to be more straight, it can be very nice. Now I see everyone. Wonderful. And so we can rest into our contact with Mother Earth. We know that Mother Earth is there for us. She's always there for us. It's not imagination. We can feel it right now in the soles of our feet, in our contact with the chair, the contact of the air on our skin. As that air comes in, we feel the love of the living green world. That oxygen coming in, refreshing every cell of our body. What is that if not joy? It's the joy of being alive. And as we breathe out, we can relax, we can release, we can rest. And we give back our offering to the trees and to the green things of this world in this continuous cycle of exchange in which we participate. We breathe in the out-breath of the trees. We breathe out the in-breath of the trees. We breathe in life. We breathe out gratitude. Breathing in, we know that we are alive. Breathing out, we feel the joy, the simple joy of being alive in this moment. Breathing in, we know we are not alone. We know we are connected to one another in so many ways, throughout space, in this moment, wherever each of us are, we are connected. And also in time, we are not alone in time. This moment is the product of the love, the care, the compassion, the insight of so many ancestors in so many traditions. Our blood ancestors, our spiritual ancestors, the ancestors of the land. They are all with us in this moment. And as we breathe out, we continue into the future and we pass on all of that love, that wisdom, that joy, and that insight to everyone. We give it all away, hold nothing for ourselves. And the cycle continues. Receiving the love, the care, the insight of the past, and passing it on, giving it all away to our children, to our students, to those we touch, our loved ones, everyone in our life. All it takes is one moment of eye contact, one moment of reaching out to somebody's hand, hold somebody's hand, one moment of microsecond pause and just recognizing the presence of the person in front of us. That is an offering of our love and our presence. Thank you. Thank you so much.
No. Oh, thank you so much for your offering of love into our space. Thank you.
But it's a very beautiful space and it's very easy. It makes it easy for us to connect and yeah, it feels very warm, very welcoming.
If you want to turn
thank you
your
for
videos on,
smiling.
we're just showing them
Seeing
all
your
of you.
community
So
here. All
just
these little ladybugs flying everywhere.
ladybugs.
Oh, it's so wonderful.
Oh,
Because sometimes,
beautiful to see
yeah,
you.
we have to work with people who it takes them longer to land. But you guys are already here, so it's very easy. Thank you.
Take care of yourself.
Thank you, everyone. We see you again for the Global Social Witnessing in 1.5 hours. Love you.